Hello! Welcome to this video tutorial, which is going to teach you how to activate your powerful development and test environment in Microsoft Azure. The fact that you are here tells me a few things about you. For instance, I know that you're looking at the cloud for hosting your business dream to enable you to reach your customers all around the globe with the awesome service or application that you are creating. Smart move. I also know that you're interested in utilizing the Azure Cloud Platform to run your development and test environments. After all, this is what this video is about. That's another smart move by you because you have understood that using the cloud, you can create your applications faster and with greater confidence than ever before, with greater focus on your core business rather than on things that are just plumbing that you need to have in order to get your application to the market. The cloud simply is the way forward for modern businesses where speed and scale drive the success of your dreams. Congratulations to having these insights. I know for a fact that having come this far puts you ahead of the curve in the direction of pure awesome. Oh, and remember the guy in the middle, because he will return as the story in this video unfolds. In this video tutorial, I will show you how to activate Microsoft Azure Accounts, to tie them together using the Azure Active Directory, and to gain a great development and test environment. My name is Magnus Martinsson, and I run Martinsson Consulting, an Azure expert consulting company. I'm a regional director, which means that though I'm not employed by Microsoft, I work close together with Microsoft to create great business for our customers. I was the first person in Scandinavia to be awarded Most Valuable Professional for the Azure platform. So I've been involved in lots of customer cases over, well, many years now actually. I have the greatest job in the world because I get to help companies such as yours build their first set of wings, and then I get the pleasure of showing you how to use these wings to fly up to the cloud. Join me in learning about how you can enable your amazing and unlimited cloud-enabled application. Now, let's get started. Remember the guy from the picture before? Well, this is Chris Johnson. Chris is the CTO of Contoso Sweden, a small startup company in Sweden, which has a great application that they want to get out there in the world. Now, they only need to build it first, of course. Chris has a Microsoft account enabled already, and you can clearly see that from the name of this thing that I have borrowed this account from my friends at Microsoft DX Sweden. Chris has done one thing this morning which was really cool. He enrolled Contoso Sweden in BizSpark. Now BizSpark has been enabled for him, and he is now able to utilize the benefits that come with BizSpark. Every BizSpark account comes with 5 MSDN subscriptions that you can use, and each MSDN subscription has an Azure account that you are able to activate. And we're going to activate all 5 of these accounts and all 5 of those Azure accounts and tie them together with Active Directory, as I stated before. You don't have to have BizSpark. Of course, you could have any other MSDN subscriptions, for instance, or any other Microsoft accounts, paid accounts that you pay for with your credit card, or as accounts that are part of your enterprise agreement with Microsoft. It doesn't really matter. It works the same for all types of Azure accounts. So here is Chris Johnson signed into his Microsoft account. You can see his profile here. What I want to do now is head over to the Microsoft Azure portal, the preview portal, in fact, which is at the domain portal.azure.com. While I'm recording this video, the Azure portal is in preview, and you will see the signing in experience here. When you sign into the portal, you can see Chris Johnson is signed in here into the preview portal. He can still browse around in the portal and see new things and so on and so forth, but he can't really do anything in here because it doesn't really have an Azure account yet. He can see what he could create if he had one, but whenever he tries to create something, immediately that will turn into, sorry, you don't have an account. So I also wanted to show you the experience from the current portal, manage.windowsazure.com. When you go to that, the current portal, it simply says, sorry, you don't have any subscriptions, you have authenticated, but you don't have an Azure account. So the preview portal is working on making a nicer experience there. Now it's time to head over to microsoft.com/BizSpark. And I told you before that Chris has already enrolled his company in BizSpark. So he can go ahead and click in under My BizSpark to find that he has indeed an account at BizSpark. He even has an MSDN subscription already. That's sort of automatic for him. And when he clicks down under his benefits, he can start to explore what types of benefits that come with BizSpark. Under his MSDN subscription section there, he can find that it's possible to go over to subscriber downloads at the MSDN page. Indeed he can, and you can see that he is signed in, so he does indeed have an account over here already, which means that I can mark this as utilized or leveraged for him. The next thing he wants to do is to activate that Azure account. He does have Azure, and the question is, how does he activate it? Well, it says here you need to go to the My Account page on the MSDN site. The My Account. Okay, there it is. Signed into MSDN Subscriptions with an active MSDN account, MSDN subscription. I have a My Account page, which tells me the subscriber ID of my MSDN account. Great. So in the middle of the page here, you can clearly see it says Microsoft Azure, and it says Activate Microsoft Azure. That's what we're looking for. We'll head over to Activate Azure for the MSDN subscription for Chris. Now this process is rather lengthy, and I will fill in only basic stuff. Company, let's go with Contoso, Sweden. Work phone. I'll have to use my personal number to do this, and I'll actually use the same number in the mobile verification. Now this step is to send a text message to Chris to verify that he actually sort of does exist because he has a mobile phone. There we go. Now I have a code to use here. This is a one-time activation code. So we'll go and verify the code to make sure that I do indeed have a mobile phone and therefore probably am a real person. So after the mobile verification is complete, I have to agree to the agreement. And in this case for Chris, I don't need to have the Azure offers and stuff sent to me. But I suppose you should. It's going to go ahead and create a subscription, an Azure subscription for my MSDN account for Chris. And that takes a few minutes. Here we go. This is the Azure portal for accounts. It's under account.windowsazure.com, and you can clearly see that I have a BizSpark subscription pending in here, and we want to wait a few more minutes for this account to be fully activated. And I'll probably skip ahead in the video while waiting for this. Okay, here we go. Now the account has been activated so that I can start using it. I can start using Azure right away and do whatever I like with my Azure account. There's one more thing that I'd like to do, and that's got to do with the billing or the billing information for this account. I can, however, go back to the Azure portal right now and refresh, because Chris now actually has an Azure account. So we can refresh the portal and see that there is indeed a subscription for Chris, and he can move about inside of Azure now and create stuff. the billing part is probably not fully activated yet. But now you can see that Chris does indeed have an Azure account, and it'll be even more clear if I refresh the current management portal, which before didn't show anything at all for poor Chris. There we go. Hi, Chris. Take 30 seconds to show the management portal, etc., etc., right? Now, you should probably go through this in detail the first time you come here. Important stuff. But I will just click through and get into Azure for this account. You'll notice in here that there is what's called a default directory in here. There's an Azure Active Directory already created for Chris or for Chris's Azure account. Chris here is the owner of this account, and he can do whatever changes he likes inside of his Azure account. If he scrolls down to Active Directory, you'll notice then the same Active Directory called Default Directory. You actually have to have an Active Directory, an Azure Active Directory, in order to be able to have an Azure account. The default directory name and the default directory as such, you can use that if you only have one account, etc. But in our case, we want to have, as I said initially, we want to have all of our accounts. We currently have one, but all of our accounts tied to the same Active Directory. You can see here that I have an account called BizSpark under the default Active Directory. So I will go ahead and create ourselves a new Active Directory. And that's very easy to do. I can go in and under App Services and click a new directory. And I want to create a new directory. I'll call it Contoso Sweden. And let's call that Contoso Sweden. It'll get a URL or a tenant name called contososweden.onmicrosoft.com. Also asks me to select a country, and Contoso is situated in Sweden, so let's use that. So I'm creating myself a second Active Directory, one which doesn't have that default name, but rather a more interesting name. So you can see here that we have the BizSpark account, the Azure account called BizSpark, and when I hit Edit Directory, I can change it into being set up under Contoso Sweden instead of the default directory that I had that I had initially, and I actually like to do that and move this account over to this other directory. It's pretty cool because you will see that when I have several accounts tied up together with the same Active Directory, it's going to look really nice. This is only the first one. So now down in Settings, you can clearly see that the BizSpark Azure account is tied to Contoso Sweden. Now you can see that my BizSpark, my account named BizSpark, has been fully activated with a monthly benefit that I can use here. It's 1,000 Swedish kroner because Swedish kroner is the currency that I use. Now, what I'd like to do and what I'd like to sort of advise all of you to do is to hit the edit subscription details link, and you can get in there and change the name of your subscription. Now, this will be very handy when you have multiple subscriptions because this one is by default called BizSpark, okay? So let's change it to Contoso Sweden, BizSpark. You also notice that Chris Johnson is the service administrator for this account. An Azure account has an accounts administrator and a service administrator. And the account administrator is sort of the owner of the account, and he can set whichever service administrator he wants to have in here as he pleases. So now that I hit save on this, you can now see that the name of my account is Contoso Sweden BizSpark. Great. In fact, if I go back to the portal here and I refresh, you'll notice that change in name in here as well. Contoso Sweden BizSpark is the subscription name, and it's tied to the Contoso Sweden Active Directory. Great. So now we have one BizSpark account, one Azure account created and set up the way we like. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the rest of the accounts that I have. If you recall, there were other people in the picture before, and the person in the left is Anna, and she owns the company and has the brilliant business idea and such. So she doesn't really need an MSDN account because she doesn't do any coding or anything. But the guy on the right in the picture there is Anders Andersson. And for Anders, we are going to create a new Microsoft account because he's not really a Microsoft guy before. He is now first time he's actually doing anything in Azure, and he's not really using a PC or anything like that. So he's a sort of a non-Microsoft person. But he's going to become one now because we're going to go ahead and create him an account in a Microsoft account. We'll create a Microsoft account for Anders Andersson. We'll invite him into the BizSpark team run by Chris. Once he's inside of the team, he will get an MSDN subscription, and then he will also create an Azure account, and we'll associate this new Azure account with the same AD that we already have for the company Contoso Sweden. So in order to do that, let's go into another incognito browser instance here and browse over to outlook.com for Anders Andersson. And he doesn't have a Microsoft account, as you knew. So we'll go ahead and sign him up for one. Anders, not Andersson. This Outlook account is available, but I won't bore you guys with me filling in this form, so I'll do that and skip to the end. Okay, so here we are with Anders Andersson's brand new Microsoft account. It's been created and it's completely empty. We will now go ahead and invite Anders Andersson into the Contoso Sweden BizSpark team. In order to do that, we'll head back to Chris Johnson. He is the boss after all, or the CTO. We'll go back to the BizSpark portal, and we've also marked, by the way, the Azure benefit for BizSpark as leverage for Chris's account. Now, in the BizSpark portal, I can go and manage members to manage my team, and of course, we need to now add Anders Andersson in here. And Anders has for an email, we'll just go ahead and say invite. Now, so the invite has been sent to Anders. What he needs to do is go and check his inbox. And fortunately, we can do that inside of this browser session here. Ah, yes, there is the email to join BizSpark. Dear Anders Andersson, you have been invited by Chris Johnson. So all he needs to do now is accept this, and he will come into BizSpark with his own credentials. He needs to sign in the same way that Anders did, and BizSpark will recognize that, hey, you are part of a team. In order to do that, you have to, of course, register some things like phone number and where you are resident and so on. I'll go ahead and do that. Once the phone number information has been entered, there's also a BizSpark agreement that you need to go and read and make sure you understand everything about, and then click accept. If you do accept the agreement, that is. Thank you, welcome to BizSpark. Right, so now we can head over to the dashboard. And Anders Andersson is now inside of the dashboard, and he has an MSDN subscription as well. All right. He will then go and check his benefits the same way that Chris did before. does he actually have an MSDN subscription? Well, let's head over to subscriber downloads and make sure that he does. If you recall, we clicked on my account. Indeed, he does. Anders Andersson does have an MSDN account. So we'll mark that as utilized and head on down to Azure. Now this is going to be activated the same way. The Azure account is going to be activated the same way that we did for Chris. So we'll go and hit activate. This process is identical to what we saw before. I'm going to skip ahead to when this Azure account is actually created. Okay, so now I've gone through the exact same verification steps, mobile verification and agreement and such for Anders Andersson, and his account is also being provisioned here in Azure. As you can see, his account also has the default name of BizSpark. It might vary, but in all likelihood, all the accounts that you create under BizSpark will have the same name, which is one really good reason that you need to rename them the way I showed you before. So we're going to wait until this account is completely fully provisioned, and I will do the exact same steps as before to associate this Azure account with the same Active Directory that is owned by Contoso Sweden. All right. Now the account has been completely provisioned the same way as the other account we saw before, and trust me, there are a few minutes of waiting time involved here in every step along this way. But we want to do the same thing here. We want to go down and edit the subscription details and change the name here to Contoso. Now the first one was called Contoso BizSpark, or actually it was called Contoso Sweden BizSpark, like that, right? Now you can do whatever way you want to do it. Maybe say BizSpark 2, maybe say BizSpark Anders, but I'll go ahead and just use BizSpark 2. And for the service administrators, we're going to do something different because Anders Andersson owns this Azure account. It's tied to his MSDN subscription. If Anders were to leave the company, you can actually move both the MSDN subscription and the Azure account over to a different person. But in this case, we'll go ahead and let Anders, who is logged in right now, set Chris as a service administrator. So Chris Johnson is now going to be the service administrator for the Azure account owned by Anders. And you actually don't have to do this step. The other way to do the same thing is to make Anders a global administrator in the Azure account, in the Azure Active Directory owned by Chris, or created by Chris for Contoso Sweden. Chris does not feel that that's a great way of going about things, so he's doing it this other way around, saying that, well, I'll be the service administrator for all the accounts. Now, again, there are multiple ways of doing this, but this is a perfectly valid way of doing it. All right, and we have now set Contoso Sweden BizSpark 2, owned by Anders Andersson, to have a subscription administrator. As you can see here, it says account administrator is indeed Anders Andersson, but the subscription administrator is now Chris. So what we can do now is actually go back to Chris Johnson's browser session here with Azure and refresh. So what we need to do now in order to move the subscription, the other subscription over to this same Contoso Sweden directory is to actually go up to the subscriptions tab, open up and see that indeed Anders Andersson DPE Outlook.onmicrosoft.com is the default directory for Anders Andersson. Not a very exciting directory to have in here, but it still contains a subscription which we want to get into. Actually, it says BizSpark there. That's probably the renaming hasn't really gone through yet. So we're now swapping Active Directories in the Azure portal, moving effectively Chris over from focusing on his own Active Directory over to focusing on the one run by Anders, or created by Anders when he created the default Active Directory for his Azure account. Funny enough, the name is still BizSpark in here, and that's actually some sort of update that hasn't really gone through all the way, because the Anders did rename the subscription. Anyway, what we want to do in here is take the, you can see the account administrator there is Anders. What we want to do is swap directory for this guy. And because Chris is the global admin for the Contoso directory, you're able to actually associate this Azure account with a different Active Directory. And that's key in our setup here. That's actually one of the main points of this setup. Once I say I want to swap to a different directory, the browser will have to refresh again so that the portal is loaded, focusing on the correct directory. So there's a bunch of refresh that will happen here. If all goes well, and there you can see now the rename has actually propagated through. So this one was actually called BizSpark before. Funny enough, now it's called Contoso Sweden BizSpark 2 inside of the portal here. So Chris has the account moved over to Contoso Sweden. That's the main point here. This directory is controlling now 2 Azure accounts. Now, one effect here is that Anders is now left out of Azure. He can't really sign into Azure. I didn't show you before, but if we would have gone over here and say manage.azure.windowsazure.com, there's nothing here to look at for Anders. Poor Anders. He owns an account, but he can't actually access one. So what we need to do now is add Anders into the Active Directory of Contoso Sweden so that he can gain access to Azure. Now there are several ways to provide access for Anders. One is to go in here and say, well, Anders, you will be added as a new user inside of this Contoso Sweden account. I can go ahead and add a user inside of my organization and give him an email based on Contoso Sweden on Microsoft.com. By the way, now that I mention it, you can also set custom domains here, of course. I have, for my own company, I have magnusmartinsson.com here instead, because you can go in and set custom domains. But in Anders' case, he already has a Microsoft account, so we'll go ahead and add that. This is a valid Microsoft account. And here is the thing we didn't want to do for Anders. Chris did not want Anders also to be a global administrator for the Active Directory, because he doesn't really need to be one. In fact, Anders in this scenario only needs to have the user role inside of the Active Directory, so it's better to only grant him access to this level. Now there are multiple ways of granting access to an Azure account. To an Azure account for external users, but in our case, we want to have our Contoso Sweden BizSpark 2 and Contoso Sweden BizSpark to be accessed also by Anders. So what we can do is go in under administrators, and you can see we have indeed Chris Johnson in there. He has access. He's actually service administrator on both the accounts created, both the Contoso Sweden BizSpark account and Contoso Sweden BizSpark 2. But we don't have Anders in here, so let's add him. He's now in the Active Directory. So if I start typing Anders, so if I type in Anders' email here, it will be verified as a user account inside of the directory of Contoso Sweden. I can now go ahead and grant access to Anders to both these accounts, putting him effectively on the same level, sort of give him full access to the accounts the same way that Chris has. So now that Anders does have access here, we'll go back to his browser session and refresh. We'll also hit manage windowsazure.com, and you will see that since Anders is signed in, the browser or the Azure portal will notice that he is connected to the Contoso Sweden account, and now Anders gets this nice warm welcome from Azure first time he's signing into Azure. All right, so what do we have now? Well, what we have is the fact that Anders can now click down on the settings and see the accounts. He can see that there are 2 subscriptions in there, but it's sort of grayed out, as you can see. And the reason that they are gray like this is because Anders doesn't really have access to modify these. He's not the service administrator for these accounts. But he can do everything else. If there were any assets in here, we'll look at that later. And the most important part is that you can see here that Anders Andersson, being signed in, does now have access to both these accounts as a co-administrator, only that he can't manage the account itself. He can manage everything inside of the account, any websites or anything like that. We've done the steps to add Anders Andersson's Microsoft account to this scenario. It's a very, sort of takes about 10 minutes or a little bit more maybe, because you first need to create the Microsoft account, then you need to invite to the BizSpark team and create the second Azure account, in this case the Azure account for Anders Andersson, and then associate around this Azure account, rename it and put Chris as the service administrator, and then go and associate the account with the Azure Active Directory. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the same thing with a third Microsoft account and invite to the BizSpark team, etc., create the account and add that to the AD. And then I'm going to do it with a fourth Microsoft account and a fourth Azure account. And finally, I'm going to do it with a fifth Microsoft account and a fifth Azure account. And trust me, this is going to take me a good 30 minutes or so. Fortunately, this is only done once, and if there were 5 people employed at the Contoso Sweden company, they could all sit down and do it together at once with, for instance, Chris showing the other people how to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and you don't have to watch me type all that stuff and wait for a long time. So I'll come back when I have actually 5 accounts activated for this BizSpark scenario. All right, I'm back. Now I have done exactly what I said. I have activated all the 5 MSDN accounts that come with BizSpark, and I've put them all together under one AD, one Azure AD. First of all, if I go into the BizSpark portal again as Chris Johnson, I can scroll down to see my team, and the team contains Anders Andersson and 3 additional accounts that are my own accounts, because at this point in time there are only 2 people working with technology in the company and 1 manager running the show. So I activated, just for demo purposes, using additional Microsoft accounts to get all these activated and set up properly. Normally you would of course put these accounts on people who are employed in the company, and for a growing startup, you can at a later time you can move these accounts over to other people. In the Azure portal now, when I sign in as Chris Johnson again, I can see all of the accounts here. BizSpark 2, 3, 4, and 5. All of the 5 accounts are here. They are all tied in under Contoso Sweden, which is our Active Directory. And I can now use whichever I want to use when I want to start to create something. For instance, if I say I want to create myself a website, I can choose any of these subscriptions to deploy this website to. And they're all available for me. The same for, of course, the other administrator, Anders. You can see on every account here there's a service administrator and a co-administrator for all of the accounts, which means that Anders has the same access as me as Chris. So what we got now is 5 Azure accounts, and they're tied in under the same Active Directory, and Chris and Anders both have access to them, and basically can start building the service and the application that they are supposed to be building. And they have absolutely no problems at all with dev and test environments, because they can simply deploy to the Azure resources that they have in their MSDN subscriptions. It's a very, very nice setup, and I urge everybody to do the same and just really take advantage of the fact that you have these resources at your disposal. Don't you always just want to say, but wait, there's more? At least I do, and I want to show you one more thing before we say goodbye. How about super fast and stable source control, project management, and build and deploy stuff, everything just ready to go using Microsoft Visual Studio Online? How's that sound? Back in the portal here, where I'm signed in as Chris Johnson, there's also a node for a menu option there on the left for Visual Studio Online. Now, I don't have a Visual Studio Online account created yet, but I could easily create one. Just go and say quick create and use Contoso Sweden. Connect to the same directory that we have, which means that access to Contoso Sweden's Visual Studio Online account will be granted through the same Active Directory. Put that in West Europe and assign that to one of my BizSpark accounts. Just connect it to one of those subscriptions and create the account. There we go. Now that it's been created, I can actually browse to it. It'll ask me to log in, and first time I arrive here, it's gonna check if I want to set up my profile, and all this data looks great. I'm now inside of Visual Studio Online. First, let's create a project. That's what it asks me to do. First time I arrive here, create my first project. How about public website? There we go. Public website. I can choose a different process template that I want to use here, and I can use Team Foundation version control or Git. I'm going to use Git. I'll go and create my very first project in my very own tenant of Visual Studio Online. So now I'm inside of the public website project. There's only one team member right now, so I want to go and create and fix that problem first. So I'll actually go back up to the top of Visual Studio Online for my tenant, and I will go under users, and I will add Anders in here as well. Select the user from my directory. How about Anders? There we go. It's auto-completed right out of my Active Directory memberships, and he also has an MSDN subscription. Now, every Visual Studio Online account comes automatically with 5 user licenses, which means that we can assign one to Anna, the manager of the company, and other people as well, which is great. So these are 5 full feature users, and you can see here it's only 1 out of 5 assigned here currently. But the very cool thing here is that if a user is an eligible MSDN subscriber, you can send an invitation to this user, and when it signs in, the status is validated. Chris Johnson here, myself, is also in fact an eligible MSDN subscriber. I can just go and change that and hit save. As you can see, Visual Studio Online knows through MSDN that yes, I do indeed have an ultimate MSDN subscription assigned to me. So you can see here that now 0 out of 5 of the available for free licenses or included licenses are used. If I go in and add Anna in here, she will use one of these because she doesn't have an MSDN account. So now at least I know that these people are in here. Anders can also sign in and work in this project now. The public website. If I go to the public website project again, I can go and manage the team. I can go and add a user, Anders. Anders will now also be able to work with this project. We don't have any code yet, so we'll take care of that problem right now. When I click into our code, I see the project that I have here that I'd like to clone. Using this nice little command here, I can easily clone this project to my local machine. So in fact, I already have a project here ready to go. So I'll do a git init on that project folder. I'll do a git add, in fact, to add all my files. There's a bunch of files for my website already in there. A website which is running here in Visual Studio, which I actually want to show you just real quick. It's a basic template, of course, for a website, and the next step would be to actually create the fully functional website of Contoso, Sweden. Now all the stuff is added. I can now do git commit and see added public website project. Let's do that. So I have a local git folder right here, and I want to now connect to my remote. Now before I do that, there's actually one more thing that I have to do. I have to go back to my profile up in my user profile up in my Visual Studio Online, and in order to use command line git that I'm using right now, I need to check my credentials and in here and enable alternate credentials and set a password. Now this is because I will need to log in from the command line. That's why I need to set this. So let's see if I can type. So now I have the ability to actually use to use the command line to access this project. This Git folder that I have right now doesn't have any remotes, so I can't push my code up to Azure using this folder. So let's go and do git remote add, and let's call that Contoso Sweden, just like that. And you can see that there's actually now a remote that I can fetch and push my code to. So all that remains, I suppose, is to do git push Contoso Sweden master, and I will push my code from this local Git repository up to Azure. But before I do that, I want to show you how really easy it is to integrate with Azure and get a continuous deployment going for this project. We don't have any websites or anything in here yet, so let's go up to websites and say I want to create one. So let's do a Contoso Sweden website and put that in West Europe and put that into our BizSpark account. Just choose any one of them. I happen to choose the first one that I created. All right, so now I'm creating myself a website. The website is available to browse to already in Azure, and it looks like this. It's an empty template website. And I can also, at this point, choose to look at this in the preview portal. It's actually the nicest place to look at websites, if you ask me. but I've been using for purposes of accessing the Active Directory features. I've used the current portal, but I like to look at the websites over in the preview portal as well. That's where I prefer to manage my websites. You can see now that inside of here I have one running website. I can go and look at all the features and everything on how my website is doing and so on and so forth. So far I haven't deployed anything yet, okay? So what I want to do now is I want to go scroll down here and open up set up continuous deployment. I can actually do that from the current portal as well, but let's do it from here. I want to choose a source. How about using Microsoft Visual Studio Online? There we go. There it is. The public website. I want to use the public website. And let's see if there's a repository for it. Yes, the same one, the public website. Is there a specific branch I want? Well, there's actually just one, and it's called default right now. I can change that if I like. So let's set up continuous deployment of my website so that whenever I push code into my website, I will be able to get a continuous deployment to the public website. So I can make small changes and just push them into Visual Studio Online, and immediately the result will show up here. And as you can see here, there is no deployment that I have currently done because I haven't done any deployments yet. Only one more thing to do, I suppose, and that is to actually push my code up to the remote, up to Visual Studio Online. It's going to ask me for my credentials, and it's only going to do that the first time. And because I went and activated those alternate credentials, all of that code was now just simply pushed up into Visual Studio Online really quickly. If I go back to Visual Studio Online, I can now see in the code section that I do indeed have my website pushed in. And not only that, because I integrated with the website that I created in Azure, I can go in and under builds, and there's a continuous deployment build being created that has been created. This continuous deployment build was created exactly when I pushed my website, when I connected my website to Visual Studio Online using the management portal. So here we're now waiting for this build to start going. Right, now as you can see, there's a play symbol there that shows that this is now in progress. I can go and double click it, and I can see my build being run for the very first time using my build script there, build and deploy. And it's going to take a while for this thing to build, and then it's going to actually go and deploy into Azure, and we will just wait and watch that happen. So now you can see my build starting to run on the agent that's going to build my site. If I had had any unit tests, it would have actually built and run my unit tests as well. And if any unit test would have failed, it would have not deployed the site. So there's additional automation for out of the box for unit testing as well. But as you can see, every step of the way is running here in Azure. And by the way, I can go back to Visual Studio and look at this as well, the same way I would have normally done in any other Team Foundation server scenario. I can look at the builds as they happen inside of Visual Studio as well. And done. So now you see that the build has completed for the website, and you can also see that it says that the website has been deployed. Now, if I go back to the websites in Azure, in the Azure portal, it does indeed say that Chris Johnson has published a version of the website. And if I go back again then to contososweden.azurewebsites.net, the website in Azure, and I hit refresh, the website of Contoso Sweden has now been publicly deployed to Azure and anyone can browse to it. So that is how easy it is to do, to set up continuous deployment using Visual Studio Online, manage your team and integrate with the same security system, the same Active Directory. Everything is just there and everything is just fast and nice. To summarize, if you can dream, you should go and activate your Azure resources so that Azure can help you succeed and grow and become, really awesome in the cloud. With that, it's time to say goodbye. I thank you for taking the time to listen to this video and watch these steps. Now you can do them too, and you should go and do it right away. And if you have any questions, so seriously, just send me an email. If it's not a big question, I can usually just answer them and help you out if you can't make this work really properly. And actually, there is one more thing that I should say. If you guys are using Office 365 or are considering using Office 365, it will also come with an Active Directory. And you might want to start there and use the same Active Directory that you already have for Office 365 in your Azure accounts as well. In my scenario, I created an empty one, but that was just because I didn't have Office 365 in this scenario. Check me out online. My online alias is NoOpMan. Well, that's it, folks. Thank you. Bye.